everyone. You are hopefully here live, not experiencing any audio-visual issues, and talking to me. I am so excited to have Lane Wagner on this interview with me. It's another live interview. A lot of you have been asking, like, how are you moving off Medium? How are you getting freelance work? How do people find you? And I can obviously provide my background, but then I thought, how much more useful would it be if I actually got someone who hired me and asked him a bunch of questions about how he found me, what he looks for in a freelance writer, what successful parameters are for freelance writing, and that kind of thing. So Lane, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah. So I'm Lane Wagner. I started an online site for learning or helping students learn to code about 4 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago. Actually, I think I keep saying 4 months ago. It's probably more like 6 or 7 now.
Time is so weird in this pandemic.
Perpetual 4 months for a long time. But no, so the best traffic I get to the site is organic.
Okay.
I'm a writer myself. I've been writing for about 1.5 years, but it's not enough, right? So finding someone else or other people, plural, to help write and drive traffic to the platform has really been obviously my priority.
Yeah, so talk to me a little bit about why organic, like your website, for people who don't know, is aimed to help people learn how to code, which is not something I normally associate with long form blog posts, but you say that that's the thing that drives traffic to your site. Could you talk a little bit more about like your understanding of the relationship between long blogs and getting traffic?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say I actually have kind of perhaps the reverse perspective that most business owners would have, in that about 1.5 years ago, I started blogging about coding because I'm an engineer, my day job.
Yeah.
And I had some really successful blog posts right out of the gate about some more advanced topics, specifically about cryptography. And I got a lot of traffic to my Medium posts. Actually, it was on Medium, picked up by a publication called Good Audience, and I was I was excited to see all the traffic because I've never gotten that kind of attention online before, but I wasn't using it in any way. I wasn't making any money off of it, and I'd always had side projects I was working on. And I was like, I have this audience, like I need to build something for them. Right? So it was almost the reverse of, I have some form of audience online. Now I need to build something for them. And now I've drifted away from that to where I've built this thing and I need even more. I need to grow the audience even more. So that's kind of the situation I'm in right now. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounded like, yeah, you had an audience, you already knew that writing blog posts like this would drive traffic to your site. You built your site. And then, so it sounds like you know how to write well for an audience. So what made you look for a freelancer rather than just doing it yourself?
That's a great question. So part of it is definitely that with Qvault, I'm still trying to figure out what exactly my target audience is. But one thing I know for sure is that it's definitely new coders, people who have either never written code before or trying to learn code, or maybe have done a project here or there but want more structure to their curriculum. And the problem that I had with my audience early on was that it was advanced, it was senior engineers, right? It was very technical content. It was people who'd already been coding for many years were reading. So I really needed to start shifting away from that. Obviously, I still want to write to those people or for those people because it's fun. It's the kind of stuff I enjoy writing about. But I need to target different keywords, right? And keywords like learn to code instead of how does elliptic curve cryptography work? So
yeah. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So it sounds like there was a disconnect between the kind of writing that you find fun and you can actually do and that you take pleasure in doing, and then the kind of traffic that you were hoping would drive traffic to your website. So I obviously have written one post for you. For those of you who don't know which one, I'll post the link in the chat. It was about how long it takes to learn to code, which I do think is, it's something that hopefully a lot of beginners would search for. I'd love to know what other topics have driven traffic to your website in the past that were like these beginner style topics.
That's a good question. I haven't actually had a lot of success with beginner style topics myself, mostly because I haven't really done them. I could talk a little bit about what I tried before hiring you.
Yeah, go for it. I'd love to hear that.
So, like I said, the content that I write typically does okay, the more technical stuff. But as I've maybe a month and a half ago, I tried to get into some of the more beginner content, the more abstract content, like how to learn to code rather than some niche advanced topic, right? And my first attempt was to go to websites like Fiverr or to go on Reddit and try to find freelance work through like various subreddits that do that sort of thing, like the For Hire subreddit. And I worked with a couple people, and it was just really not good. I got articles that I had to edit so heavily that it was just easier to do it myself. Like, it actually probably would have been faster to start from zero on some of them. So I wasted a lot of time, not so much money. It was like pretty cheap to go through those sorts of channels, but I wasted a lot of time on that. And then I moved to a SaaS platform. I don't know if I necessarily want to name drop them here, but basically the way it worked is you'd sign up and you'd give the platform your topic, your headline, and it tried to match you anonymously with authors.
Okay.
So some random people that I don't have contact with would write the article, send it back to me, and then I would rate the article if I liked it from 1 to 5, and then it tried to use that to learn and figure out what kind of articles I want. Again, it was pretty much a disaster. I had to heavily edit everything. So.
Oh no, yeah, because I have never run my own business. Well, I'm running, I guess the closest I can do is me running my own business. But my understanding is that there's not a lot of spare time involved. You're like, what does your day-to-day look like that doesn't include writing?
Yeah, so I'm really busy. I probably work between 80 and 100 hours a week right now.
Yeah, so no time to be editing or really writing blog posts that are hopefully going to drive traffic to your site.
Well, so part of the reason I work so much right now, I probably wouldn't work this much, but I still have a full-time job.
Right. Okay. I see.
So I have a full-time job, and then I spend an additional 40 to 60 hours working on my stuff on Qvault, right?
Yeah.
So that's what keeps me mostly busy. But I would say I spend maybe 10 hours a week writing. I spend maybe 10, 20 hours a week coding, because I write all the software for the platform. So anytime a new feature needs to be added, front end, back end, database, like all that kind of work doing. I'm updating like social outlets, things like that.
Okay.
Trying to keep those up to date. But yeah, mostly writing and writing courses.
The reason I want to ask is mostly for the viewers. So when I was just starting out as a freelancer, I had a hard time thinking of my own value, like reasoning why people would pay me to write something, which is something I love doing, and y'all probably do too. So I was hoping, yeah, and that's exactly right, Lynn, is that you have a lot of other stuff that you are trying to do right now, and it is worth the price for you to have someone that you can trust who's going to do a good job, write something to your specifications, and know that you're not going to have to spend another hour or two editing it after it comes in. Which actually brings me to my next question, which was like, how did you find me?
That's a great question, and to your point, yes, like your article, I didn't really have to touch at all, and it was a huge time saver. That's really what it comes down to. Writing went for me from something I did for fun out of the gate to now it's just something that I have to do if I want the business to be successful, and I don't have time to do it. So how I found you, like I said, I had some failed attempts, and so I'm just Googling online, best ways to find a good writer. And the method that was recommended in some random video that I happened across was to search the search term that you're trying to target, which was for me either learn to code or how to learn to code quickly, something like that, and find some articles that are good and are ranking and reach out to the author. right? And so that's exactly what I did. You were one of the first people I reached out to, and everything kind of just fell into place. So at the end of the day, it's about for the client, it's about how much return am I getting on the investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
I pay someone a couple $100 for an article, I need to get some amount of traffic out of that so that I can make that revenue back, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's something I really want to drive home, because it was something I had such a hard time understanding, is that blogging on, like, having good content on a website it's not a nice to have for a lot of businesses, it's a need to have. And that is super valuable from what I've learned from working with you. Okay, so I kind of want to pivot now. So I think that was really interesting to hear how you found a good author, like someone that you knew would fit your needs, as you Googled the things that you wanted to be on that would link to your site or ultimately, and then you just kind of reverse engineer to find the person who would do that for you. I would love to hear what, like, when you first looked over my story that I'd written for you, what were you looking for? Like, what made you think, okay, this is something that she's done that's really good, this is something that I would like to see better, that kind of, what brings value to this partnership from the writing perspective?
Again, that's a great question. But to me, like, the proof was already in the pudding, in that you had an article ranking for a keyword that I cared about.
Right.
I read the article, obviously. The bar, like, in my mind was in the dirt as far as like who I'd worked with in the past. It was just like, wow, this is like a great article. It's coherent. It talks about what it's supposed to talk about. And it's ranking for a keyword. So that to me was the most important thing. But I mean, to your listeners, the only reason I found Zuli was that she already had a portfolio and she was already ranking for interesting content. So if you want to make clients unhappy and don't want to be paid very well, I'd say just go find freelance gigs on Reddit. But but a great way to find good clients is obviously to have a good portfolio already built out.
Yeah. Have you ever, just out of interest, have you ever had anyone reach out to you to offer their services?
Yeah, actually, all the time.
Oh, really? Like for writing blogs?
Yeah, mostly because there's a link on Qvault that says, like, you can guest post.
I see.
You,
Okay,
like, send an email. Occasionally, I'll have people reach out. Again, usually because I've put out a solicitation, but then, like, those solicitations kind of live forever on the internet, so you just randomly get people messaging you. None of the people that have messaged me have ever sent me anything I've been impressed with. The worst thing I get is like, hey, are you still looking to fill that position? I would never look at a message like that or respond to it. But if someone were to, like, cold reach out like that, I would expect, like, more of like a resume, a link to a portfolio. Like, I don't have to have this conversation without just having some things to look at. So I guess my recommendation is, if you're reaching out to people cold to offer your services, would be in that first message to explain who you are, what you specialize in, give a couple example articles, things like that.
Yeah, one thing I have had, my sample size here is 3, so I can't draw any significant conclusions, but something I've had luck with has been actually proposing topics to talk about. So I was like, hi, I love your blog. I'd love to contribute. Here are some headline ideas that I have. Is that something that would be appealing to you as, like, a business owner?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because when you mentioned, here's some headlines that I have in mind. A lot of times I spend a significant amount of time trying to find the topics to write about, as opposed to just writing the content. So a writer who's familiar with that process of finding what to write about, what's going to drive traffic, that's a huge help and takes more off of my plate, which at the end of the day, that's what I'm looking for, is
a time saver, someone who's going to make your job easier, not harder. Like, it's not like you're experiencing. That's great. So I ranked by accident, to be totally honest. I don't have much of a knowledge of SEO. I've been learning more as I go, but it's still something that I don't know a lot about. So to give the audience the best chance of finding people like you who are like, oh, you've already ranked for this, do you have any, I don't know, top tips for getting your articles to rank on Google?
So it's funny that you ranked by accident, because that's how I ranked the first time I ranked as well. It was like, it's like there's some kind of beginner's luck out there. Like but I mean, at the end of the day, if you write good content, it's going to rank. It's just that you can set some parameters that make the rules of the game easier for you. And what I've found is the easiest is to use a tool like Google Keyword Planner. That's like probably the free, and it's one of the only free tools and actually one of the best tools for looking up the competition on a given term. So if you have something you like to write about, you can go look at the long tail keywords that have to do with that topic. So you go to Google Keyword Planner, I would type in something like learn to code, and it'll give me 1,000 long tail keywords. And it'll give me a competition number. And Google is the one calculating that, and it says basically for how many people are searching this term, how many good articles do we already have?
Right, okay.
So I look for things with low competition, high traffic, and I write for those.
I'm trying to find the tool you're talking about. Did you say Google Keyword Planner?
Yeah, it's like a section of Google Ads, Google Ad Manager.
Do you have to, like, just for anybody who's trying to do this at home, do you have to have like an account or anything, or can you just hop on?
You just have to have a Google account, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, it's under ads.google.com/home/tools/keyword planner, I believe.
All right, I will keep looking for that while we're talking. I'm not very good at multitasking, so I'll focus on the questions for now. Okay, so it sounds like what you were looking, kind of to go through the process so far, you had a problem, which was not enough time, also not that much interest in writing these beginner stuff. You sound like a pretty experienced coder, so you're like, I don't really want to learn. I don't really want to write about how long it takes to learn to code. So you were looking for someone who you already knew could provide quality work that would not only answer people's questions and add value to your site, but rank for these search terms. So people who Google, how long does it take to learn to code, will be driven to your site and ultimately resulting in more revenue for you. And the way you did that was, just like Googling stuff that you would hope would link back to your site and being like, all right, that's the person. Which is, I think, a really cool way of finding good authors because, yeah, like you say, you've already seen what we're capable of and you already know what we can deliver and how that's valuable for you. So I was trying to think of like how I was ranking on SEO and how I would do it again. One thing I think people don't know, just to do a little quick tip on Medium, is that you can actually access the SEO settings in your blog post if you're a Medium author. And if you just go into like story settings and you edit your story and you change the title and like the meta description, which is the first, 100 or so words that show up on your post, and you edit those to include the keyword that you want to lead to your post, that increases its chances of being found on Google. And one thing I did for this post that I wrote for you, Lane, actually, was I used something called pingler. Have you heard of that?
No.
You probably use something similar. It's like a way of letting Google know, I think, that your post is live and on the internet and lets it start to rank faster. So I'll drop that link in the chat as well, because it doesn't only do it for Google. It does it for like Bing and DuckDuckGo and I think Ecosia and some other ones. And that's actually how I've been able to start getting external traffic to some of my other stories, is because it lets these search engines know, oh, there's already a post here. Here's the keyword it's important to, and it can start ranking rather than waiting for Google to do its trawling or whatever. So I guess I've got 2 questions left, and my second to last one is perhaps a little bit harsh for me to ask, but you've told me that you would potentially have me for like to do 5 or 6 stories. And then at there, you would kind of reassess and see if it was working, if it wasn't. What to you would prove that it was a successful partnership, and what to you would be like, all right, well, that's it. Probably don't need to keep doing this.
So every time an article is published, there's really 2 numbers that I care about. And I have around 150 articles I've published. So I have a decent amount of like numbers to look at. I've been running analytics on them. But the 2 numbers that I really care about are how much traffic did it drive when it was published, and then how much traffic does it get consistently after that through organic search, right? Because those 2 numbers are very distinct. Some of the articles I've written have like gotten shared on Hacker News or gone on a page on Reddit, and you get crazy amounts of traffic temporarily. Obviously, the problem is if you can't capture that traffic at the time and like monetize it, you essentially get nothing from it, and you're just hoping that it ranks after that for the traffic to keep coming in.
Right.
So there's really two things that I'm looking at in these like 5 or 6 articles that we're going to do. And it's, first of all, when it's published, how well does it do? Because that's important to show, I think, just like how the quality of the article stands on its own, right? Is it creating some kind of like viral buzz when people are reading it? Do people share it when they read it? That kind of thing. So really just like the traffic in the first week or so. And then the other thing that's harder to assess right after so say you publish this 6th article. Just as the 6th article is published, say 2 months after the 1st article is published, I'll start to get a feel for how that 1st article is ranking on Google.
It takes 2 months. Wow. Okay.
It takes a while, especially for it to kind of like settle into where it's going to land, because Google like tests it out and put it in different areas of the SERP and see the click-through rates and things like that. So it's a little hard to tell. So more likely what the process is going to be is after 6 articles, I will know for sure if we can keep making more, if like some of these articles do really well when they're released and like get shared and, like I said, go to the front page of Reddit or some Facebook group or whatever. That would be an indicator that we can definitely keep going. But assuming that doesn't happen, which is very likely that doesn't happen because it's, it's hard to get an article to go viral. But assuming that doesn't happen, what I'll do is just wait like 2 months and watch those articles and then reach back out to you. Assuming they rank well, just reach back out and we'll keep going. So
okay, yeah.
time.
Yeah, to quickly recap, it sounds like you're looking for that instant big hit, which I've seen this on some of my stories. Although I guess, like you say, they tend to be for more niche topics. Like I just wrote one about, I forget. Oh yeah, the psychological trick to make a better first impression, and that got shared, I think, on like the Google content suggestions, and I got 3,000 views from that yesterday alone. Amazing! I never get that. I don't think that's going to last though. Like that's something that's already starting to peter out, and I'm hoping that it'll rank in Google over time. So when people Google psychology, better impression, whatever, I'll come up and I can start to establish myself there. But yeah, those 2 sources of traffic are the ones that you're interested in. And I had no idea it took so long. I kind of assumed, I don't know, maybe like I guess I would have said a month if you put a gun to my head and forced me to spit something out. But 2 months, wow.
You can get an idea. I'm sure you get an idea after a month. Just you get a better idea the longer it's up, right? So I'd say you give it 2 months to kind of settle in. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll have one last question and then I'll open it up to the audience to ask any questions that you all fancy asking Lane. So just to kind of put a bow on the whole thing, what are your final tips for any freelancers looking to be hired by someone like you? What would you say is the best thing that they can be doing?
So the number one thing is to keep writing. Okay. Whether you're getting paid or not, right? Keep writing, try to rank for keywords, because the more successful you are personally, it's kind of cliche, but like with your personal brand, right? The more successful you are in that regard, opportunities will just come to you if you do well. And then I would also say in the meantime, while you're writing for yourself, like we talked about, you can definitely reach out to people, and you should. But when you do reach out to people, I would take a quality over quantity approach. Write out a couple paragraphs about who you are, include some links to your work that's relevant to the person you're reaching out to. Because like I said, if it's me, I just blow off the DMs that say, hey, are you looking for a writer or whatever. So
yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Well, thank you so much, Lynn. This has been really, really helpful, not just hopefully for my viewers, but also for me. I really like hearing more about what successful writing is for you and for Qvault especially. And I'm looking forward to the next 5 articles. I'll keep you all up to date. I will start looking through the chat. If you've got any questions for me, for Lane, about freelancing or coding or anything else, feel free to pop them in the chat. Jacqueline wants to know the article that was ranking. I think I know which one it was, but I can't. Was it the one about how to learn to code?
I think it was. I don't know if I can find it. I think, where did I reach out to you first? It was through your website, right? Through your contact page?
So it was on the
That was where I think I dropped the link to the article I found. But yes, I believe it was, I'd like to get a link for this person.
The fastest way to learn to code. I've found it. I'll post the link in the chat. Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, I have a hobby interest in coding. I would not call myself a programmer, but it's something I used to like to do for fun. So I have written a couple articles, as you know, I've written a couple articles about it. Yeah, so, okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Jacqueline. Let's see. Harish wants to know, during very early stages, is it preferable to publish as many stories as possible or one story every 2 to 3 days? I guess this is probably more medium specific, although Lane, I would be interested to hear your take on this as well. Like as an owner of an actual business blog, not just like a fun blog like I have. During very early stages, I would say try to publish as often as you can. What I've found is that my audience likes the way I write about very specific topics. They like the way I write about psychology. They like the way I write about self-help. They like the way I write about cats. If I write about other stuff, I enjoy writing it, but it doesn't tend to do very well. So this will help you get a sense for what your audience resonates best with when you write. Lane, in your experience, is it better to be like consistent or just like bulk publish as much as you can?
This is great. I would say the incentives are misaligned between the business and the writer. Mm-hmm. So as a business, I would say I'm more incentivized to write more often.
Okay.
Because a constant stream of content, I get more chances to rank.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the author, it's slightly different. There's still, obviously, you still want to drive traffic. You still want the attention from publishing a lot. But if you're trying to build a portfolio that that business owners or clients are potentially going to go look at, mm-hmm. I would say, again, just definitely focusing on the quality, because I'm not going to go read all 500 articles you have. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go read 2. So what are the chances that I read 2 good ones?
Right, I see. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. That's really solid. And actually, that I've heard that before from somebody else I've interviewed. I think maybe Jordan. Like, if you assume that, like, it's a good reason not to just publish for the sake of publishing, because if you assume someone like Lane is going to check out your profile and they see your random garbage listicle that went nowhere because it was bad, they're going to be like, oh, maybe this person isn't as good a writer as they were like a year ago or whatever. So definitely a good point. Geotime Minajo. All right, pressure's on you, Lane. Number 1 tip for newcoming freelancers.
Oh, okay. The number 1 tip. It kind of depends where they're at.
Okay.
If they like already have a client or 2, or if they're like they've like never written an article before and they just decided they want to start. If they're just, I'm going to assume this person has like never written an article, and they just are starting to write. My advice would be to absolutely focus on things you care about personally, mm-hmm. because you can tell. When I go to write an article about something I don't care about that I know will rank, the article is not as good.
Yeah, that's true.
When it's something I like. So that would be my number 1 advice is write about things you care about, because the people that hire you, again, they're looking for quality writing a lot of times. It's not always
just like keywords.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, because that, again, knowing next to nothing about SEO, I have heard people like you who say Google, their algorithm is good at finding out what good writing is. They're not just looking for like density of keywords. They're looking for stuff that's engaging, that answers the question that the Googler has searched for, and that's, going to be relevant for people. So yeah, you're right. I would have said something similar lines, is that if you're going to try freelancing, which I was really scared about before I started, because I thought it was going to be a lot of like posting on Fiverr, which I'm glad I did in your experience. The best and most fun freelancing jobs have been the ones that I love doing. And they're also the ones that I do the fastest and that I typically get paid the best for, because that's my best work that I'm putting forward. And that's what people are interested in. So that was a great question. Let's see. Ryan asks, what advice would you give to new programmers that want to get into technical writing? I feel like the topics I'd write about aren't advanced enough. I'll pitch that one to you, Lane, because I am definitely not even a new programmer, not a programmer at all.
This is a good question again. So technical writing, I feel like, has gotten into an interesting place in the last couple of years. There's sites like Medium. There's another one that's popular called dev.to. To the point, like, I guess it's expanded a lot faster than you would imagine. Like 6 or 7 years ago, most developers didn't write at all. Like it just wasn't really a big thing, or maybe even farther back, like 10 or 11 years, only the most like, I don't know, like the most senior developers would like have a blog because they were the only ones anyone really cared about.
Right.
Now we're in a weird place where with tools like Medium and Dev, it's so easy to write blogs that like entry-level people are writing blogs, and it kind of has resulted, in my opinion, to like the blind leading the blind in some respects. and that's why, like, when I hired you to write to the entry level, you're not writing technical content. You're not writing how to program. You're writing how to learn to program.
Right. Okay.
Completely different. So my advice to someone like Ryan would be, when you write about a topic, try to dive in deep and definitely make sure you've gone over the technical aspects of what you're writing about very thoroughly. And you don't have to be a senior developer to be able to write. That's not my point. I'm not trying to be a gatekeeper. But whatever topic you choose to write about, definitely do a lot of research on that topic, because I see a lot of people writing something they learned their 4th day on the job, and it just turns out to be misinformed or not really useful. So
yeah, I'm not a technical writer, but I did recently do some research on technical writing for a Medium article. And the advice I got, and I'll be interested to hear what you think of this, Lane, the resounding #1 piece of advice was try to go narrower. Like, start by saying, okay, here's my beginner's topic on learning to code, and then pick one thing that you find interesting in that and keep going deeper and deeper, and not to be afraid to try to write something a little out of your comfort zone, like something that you're not an expert in, but just committing to doing like a couple extra hours of research to really understand it. And then that's the way that you do eventually get good enough to do this kind of thing in a way that's easy enough that you'll actually make the right amount of money for the work that you're doing. So yeah, what are your thoughts, Lane?
Yeah, just one thing about that. So one of my very first article on Medium, it was called A Very Basic Intro to Elliptic Curve Cryptography. I'm not a cryptographer. I'm a computer scientist, but that's close enough. And I spent, in writing that, I don't know, maybe 1,500 word article, 80% of the time was research, maybe 90% of the time was research. So that would also be my advice to Ryan is don't be afraid to write about something you are learning, but just expect that it's going to take a long time. And that pays off, right? That article did really well. So
Amir's got an awesome question. How do you balance writing what you enjoy and then showcasing your expertise in an area through freelancing? I am very lucky that I don't have to. A lot of my freelance work is writing that I enjoy doing. I do some ghostwriting that I talk about, like personal wellness and marketing, and I love writing about that stuff. But yeah, I guess, have you done any freelance writing, Lynn, or just for yourself?
Just for myself. Yeah. Before Qvault, I was just writing for fun. And then, like I said, I launched the product, and then it's shifted to more of a traffic-driven approach. But yeah, I've just never really, never worked for anyone else in terms of writing code. But
I think you could almost turn this question on its head, and I think the best freelance work you're going to do, and the one you're going to enjoy the most, is what you naturally enjoy doing. And that's the whole concept behind how Lane found me. Is I wrote something that I wasn't an expert in, but I thought it was interesting, and I thought other people might be too. And that was good enough to rank in Google. How? I don't know, but there we go. And and that's ultimately how you ended up hiring me to do this, which is writing that, again, I enjoy doing a lot. So I think that's a good question, but in an ideal world, I don't think you should have to pick between like enjoyable writing versus expert freelance writing, if that makes sense, Amir.
I agree.
Let's see. Oh, a startup question from Clement. I'm not sure if you're American or French. Did you launch Qvault? If yes, was your launch successful? And also, have you crossed your first 2,000 users mark?
I am right at the let me check really quick. I'm right at about the 2,000 user mark.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And it took you, was it 4 or 7 months? 7 months.
Let's see. We launched in June, so
5 months. I can't do.
Is that 5 months? Something like that. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So okay. So right now we have 1,939 users. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with where we're at. It's not. When people say launch, I'm going to take this question and kind of go a certain way with it, I guess.
Let's have it. I'm ready.
When people say launch, I made a lot of mistakes launching because I'm a back-end engineer. I'm not even a front-end engineer, so I'm not even good at like making things look pretty, right? I like data, that kind of thing. So launching was really hard. But I did launch. I launched what you'd call a minimum viable product. It was just one course. It had a freemium sort of thing going on where you could take part of it. So was the launch successful? Yeah, we got a couple hundred users within the first several weeks. I wasn't really making any money yet. I'd made because it was all like free users, or the most of them were free users. But the hardest thing about launching, especially as a solo founder, and you still have a full-time job, is there's just too much to do. You know, I don't have anyone to do marketing. I don't have anyone to do sales. So it's really just been a long, drawn-out launch process, and we're just growing slowly. And that's what you do when you bootstrap a business. I haven't taken on any funding like from a venture capital firm that would have been able to like springboard that launch process.
Yeah.
What would have been in that situation is I would have had 3 or 4 other people I was working with on a team. We would have set up a launch day. We would have done a whole thing. But when you're bootstrapping from the ground up, it's much different.
Yeah, I wonder, looking back, would you have done anything different?
Oh, there's a million things I would have done differently. If I were to like start again, I think I could probably get to where I'm at now in maybe half the time. Such a learning experience doing something for the first time. So
yeah, Amir's got 2 questions. I'll do this one first. No, you know what? Sorry, I'm actually going to do this one first because it's relevant. How long was it for you to get to the launching point for Qvault?
It's a good question. Pretty quick, actually. Again, because my specialty is coding. I was able to code the first version of the website in maybe 3 weeks.
Okay.
Just working in like at nights.
Yeah.
Yeah, just working at nights. That's in stark contrast to non-technical founders who are launching software, because usually what they have to do is either partner with someone who's going to write the code, because that's step 1, right, is to get the product built, or they have to pony up $20,000 to $30,000 to get like a team or a freelancer to build whatever it is. So I am lucky in that respect that I was able to just kind of code it in my free time. And yeah, about a month.
That's not, yeah, three, especially in your free time. I can't even imagine. I mean, I guess I've always been writing up until about a month ago. I wrote while I had a full-time job on the side. My full-time job was, the writing was on the side. My full-time job was obviously my full-time job. And yeah, it took me so long to do just normal stuff, like getting a website set up, using like a template, like Squarespace. So I can't even imagine doing your own from scratch with coding. But all right, Amir's other question is, have you ever been afraid of a topic to write? I can answer this one for myself, obviously. I am always a little bit afraid to write relationship ones because so I write under a pen name. Zuli's not my real name. I decided that very early on in my Medium career, but there are a couple people who know who I am IRL, and they also know who I'm with IRL. And sometimes I write relationship stuff and I'm like, are they going to see this? Are they going to go back to my partner and tell them that I wrote this? Nothing like super sensitive, but that's probably veering too close to the personal line is where I get the most afraid. What about you?
Yeah, two articles come to mind. So this is going to touch briefly on a point that we made earlier, how there's some articles that do well initially and some that rank for keywords. I had 2 articles that when I wrote them, I was fairly confident that they would do well initially in terms of traffic, but that they probably wouldn't rank for any keywords.
Right.
And that was specifically because they were very controversial, and it was something that no one would search for. Right? When I say controversial, I mean controversial in the tech industry. So one of them was about how management should work. And I was basically ripping on an entire way of doing management within like managing tech teams.
Yeah. And
that one did really well on like Hacker News and stuff, but obviously it's such a long tail like headline that no one ever searches for it.
Yeah.
I was a little afraid because, this article is going to get out and people are going to see it and associate it with me, and managers I've worked for in the past are going to be like, is that me he's talking about? But I think, it was fine.
Yeah, I think sometimes I'm guilty of maybe imagining I'm bigger in the writing world than I am.
Yeah, I don't think any of my managers actually saw it. Like,
yeah, same.
20,000 people see it online. That's not very many people in reality, right?
No, the number feels so big, but then yeah, in reality, it's a drop in the bucket. Clement Brian, I'm not sure if I'm saying your name right. Apologies if not. I think this is a really interesting question. I won't say how much Lane is paying me because I'm honestly, I'm still in the process of working out how much I should charge per article, and like, should I do it on word count or hourly? The way I came up with my rate right now is I worked backwards. I was like, okay, if I want to work X number of hours a week on freelance work or X number of hours a month, and it takes me about Y hours to put together an article, how much should I charge per article that will let me write good quality stuff, but also let me live my chosen lifestyle, which at the moment I'm living with my parents, so not like super lavish or anything, but I'm dreaming big here. And that was how I came up with my number. I don't know. I don't know how you would answer this, Lane, if you've ever had any freelance work yourself, or like how, I guess, like, what was your perspective when I came at you with the number that I had?
So I have done freelance work, just not writing, right? I've had freelance work writing code. And at the end of the day, when you're freelancing, you're providing a you're providing a service to someone.
Right.
And what they care about is the results of the service.
Mm-hmm.
So the advice that was given to me by one of my professors was, you charge as much as you can, right? You charge as much as someone is willing to pay, and then it's up to you to make sure that what you're offering is up to par with that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like we talked about earlier with Zuli, from my perspective, the whole thing is, am I generating more value for Qvault than I'm paying for the service, right? And sometimes a relationship just won't work out, and it's not really anyone's fault. For example, let's say my product sucks. Let's say Qvault has a lot of problems with it, just for example. And say your writing does really well and I get a lot of traffic, but for faults of my own, I'm not monetizing it properly.
Right, okay.
I'm not getting the conversions that I need. That would be my fault. The relationship doesn't work out, but it's not necessarily the fault of the writer. So when it comes to writing, the best thing I think you can really do is say, this is what my time is worth. This is how much value I think I can provide. And then you just try it. And I think writing is one of those things that, if it doesn't work out, it's really easy to just move on because you've been paid for the amount of work you've done. And yeah. Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna, one more question and then I'll stop us there to let you get on with your diet, because I know that you actually have a full-time job, which you probably have to get back to. Park asked, how hard was it for an article of yours to be published in a publication? Okay, so for me on Medium, I started writing 2 years ago. It was very easy, but Medium was a really different place back then, even 2 years ago. There were certain publications that were good to get into, and you could, if you wrote half decently, you could submit, and most places they would accept you. The standards have changed recently. A lot of publications are really strict about what they let in the gates and what they don't. So I think now it's considerably harder than it used to be, at least 2 years ago. Yeah, Lane, thoughts on this last question?
Yeah, my thoughts probably aren't as useful as yours, but when I published that first article on Medium was about a year and a half ago, I want to say. And I think I had a similar experience. I actually had them reach out to me to put it into a publication. It just, there wasn't much tech content yet. Medium was growing, or Medium was smaller then. So I don't know what it's like now, to be honest. And like to Zuli's point, I imagine it's much harder. There's just so much content. I guess my advice would be to keep up with like the current tech trends. Like, there's been like a lot of changes to Medium, right? Some people are happy about, some people are not happy about. But always be on the lookout for new places to publish, for new ways to publish, because you can give yourself a head start sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your extremely busy day to about freelancing. I'll post the links here that we mentioned, like Pingler, and I wrote it down, dev.to, for potential options, and everything we mentioned, I'll post it in the video description. And if you have any questions for me or for Lane, please feel free to put them in the comments of the chat. I talk to Lane fairly regularly because he now hires me to write. So I'll pass on anything to him that you need. And yeah, I hope you all learned something. And if you like coding, go check out Qvault, of course. And have a wonderful, we're coming up to the weekend now, aren't we? Time is so weird now. Have a wonderful weekend. And I hope to talk to you all soon. Thanks, Zuli. Bye, everyone.